Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Strachan's podcast, episode 4. I've got a very special guest with me, a good friend of mine from the Seismic Cinema podcast, Colin Spark. Colin, how you doing, bro?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. Just settling in.
Yeah, thanks very much for making the journey.
Alright, it's been quite eventful. We almost missed our slot.
We were like basically to pass time on the way up. We were ranking Star Wars movies and all that, like in there, so we are, and we were so invested in our conversation that we got to the stop at Wishaw and realised that we had like 2 seconds to get out. I nearly left my phone. We just scrambled off, and we got lost on the way here. We finally made it. We got here. Everything's set up, and we've just spent 10 minutes trying to do an awful skit that just isn't good.
I'd like to point out that Strachan's not very good in an emergency. He would have left his phone in the train if it wasn't for me. So
100%. That was just straight up like. You guys all know I have dyspraxia. My memory's not very good, especially in a heightened situation like that. I was like, I need to get off this train. I need to do everything I can to get off this train in time. And I forgot my phone. So thankfully Colin was there to save me, or my phone would be lost. So, but we're here. We've made it. So we're ready to go. We're going to be talking about Thor, Love and Thunder today. So we've actually kept our thoughts to ourselves. So very excited to discuss it. But before we start, I don't do this enough. I just want to ask you all. I'm on social media at Strachan's podcast on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. I think that's it. Yeah, and also Colin, you want to plug things because it's a long form entertainment. Not everybody makes it.
yeah.
Plugs it now.
So Seismic Cinema is also on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We're a movie and TV podcast, but we're also on YouTube, Spotify, Anchor, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and all the places you would find the podcasts.
Awesome. Listen to that professionalism. Run it off.
I've done that one a few times.
I know, I've heard you do that a lot. So yeah, this is why obviously we're reviewing Thor: Love and Thunder. It's obviously that's not normally what we do in my podcast, but the first 3 podcasts I've done, I mean, they've had their humorous moments. If you remember the drills going off in Gordon's podcast, or they always had some funny stories, but I do kind of want to try, and I don't want it to be, oh yeah, so I'm depressed, and this is, I want to have some fun ones. Like people will get bored of,
I'm glad to be of assistance.
Aye, no problem, bro. So will we just get straight in?
Yeah, on you go.
What were your overall non-spoiler thoughts of the movie, first of all?
Very split. I know we've not discussed this yet. Yeah. I felt like the first hour didn't quite land for me.
Right.
I felt like it was like joke. But it just felt a bit, some of the characters felt a bit off. I don't know, the Guardians of the Galaxy make a brief appearance in the film. Seemed a wee bit out of character in places.
Yeah.
And I just felt it was a wee bit too much of a Taika Waititi film, in the sense of it was maybe too much humour in the first half. But the second half, I thought the action was really good. I thought the story picked up and the humour started to land a bit for me. I feel like it was a wee bit hit and miss with the first half of the film. Yeah. So that was my kind of overall, maybe not quite what you personally thought.
So I totally get everyone's criticism. Like, I've watched a lot of reviews coming into this as well, and people have been really harsh on this movie, I think. Like, people are criticising the humour in it, and there definitely were some moments where I rolled my eyes a little bit because I'm trying a bit too hard here.
Yeah.
But I still, for the most part, like, we were all laughing, like, majority of the movie, like, and it was stupid at times, but that's like kind of the way Thor's humour has gone, and Ragnarok was very similar.
Yeah.
It's still very weird, which I love. Like, I feel like the MCU is just not scared to try things now, which I think is really good and exciting. And I thought it was fun. It was really fun. I think people's expectations are really high for Marvel now. We're saying this with movies like Doctor Strange, No Way Home, Endgame. Like, people's expecting that level of epicness and a million cameos in every movie.
Yeah.
And I think that we need to accept. I say this is more of a grounded story, but it's not really. I mean, you've got the Guardians of the Galaxy in there. You've got a really strong villain in there.
Yeah.
And you are going to different places, but when I say more grounded, I sort of more mean like a more self-contained story. I like that, but I do get some people's criticism, but I do think people are being harsh because the narrative's been created before it came out. But I think it's going to be hard to talk about our thoughts without spoiling. But I thought we can maybe timestamp this with like non-spoiler thoughts, and then if you want to go to our post Thor discussion afterwards, you can just skip to that. So
Better than what we do at Seismic Cinema. We quite often, halfway through the podcast, say, "Oh, this is a spoiler review." So that's a good way to do it.
Yeah, I've been burned a lot on social media with getting spoilers, so I like to make sure that
Sorry.
I don't. To be fair, not from you, but I remember with the worst one was the Boba Fett. Actually, people on TikTok were making spoiler TikToks,
Yeah.
and they weren't putting spoiler ones at the start, and I got so many elements spoiled of it, and I was like so annoyed. But it's just got to be. I think people got to be more sensitive to that. It can be really, really annoying, and as well, I've got to make sure my karma's good. I've spoiled quite a few things from my pals by accident as well. My pal Owen will remember when I made a spoiler alert. I told him about Han Solo dying in Force Awakens.
That's low.
Yeah, but I didn't mean to. I didn't go, oh, by the way, Owen, Force Awakens was so good, Han Solo died. Like, I was talking about it to Scoogs in front of him and mentioned that, and Owen literally was like, we were walking along the high road and going towards the room, and he literally just like sunk like down into the floor, like no, like Darth Vader when
that'd have been good to capture on camera.
Yeah, I know. It was a funny moment in the end, but I was really felt bad about that. Not the only time I've done that either. But anyway, we're going on a major tangent here. So spoiler review time. So Guardians of the Galaxy making an appearance in this movie. Were you expecting them to be more involved?
Well, the way that they ended up in the Endgame, I thought this was going to be more of a Thor and the Guardians of the Galaxy movie.
Yeah.
But they were just in like that kind of, it was like some kind of war going on. They had a brief bit on like the spaceship, but then they just kind of left.
Yeah.
So I felt it wasn't really that worth them being in it.
Aye.
That was how I felt.
Yeah, I get it. It was basically like the tease of Thor and the Guardians of the Galaxy teaming up seemed really pointless.
Yeah.
Because they were literally together for just a few minutes.
Yeah.
And I kind of get what you're saying about them not really acting in character. Like, mainly, I would say Peter Quill.
Yeah.
He was just a guy. He didn't really seem like himself.
It was a bit odd, wasn't it?
Yeah, I didn't really think about that until you actually mentioned that. I was like, you know what? Now when I think about how he was acting, he wasn't being his funny, quippy self. He was just basically being dead serious. Actually.
Yeah.
But yeah, I still that definitely was a bit of a disappointing element for me. But how the movie went, I still kind of got over it quite quickly. And I did think the start of it was funny, like with Thor, like basically taking on the whole army by himself and like being really like unnecessarily convoluted about how he went about it, and obviously destroyed those people's palaces. But I feel like a lot of it is just, I mean, Guns N' Roses soundtrack was adding a lot of epicness.
Yeah.
I'm not even a big Guns N' Roses fan, but it was really adding a lot of epicness to it. And just all the stupid little jokes that are thrown in between were just making me laugh the whole time, so I was enjoying it.
Yeah, the soundtrack was good. I've got to be nitpick with Thor movies, and it's a wee bit of a silly one. Like, obviously he's a god, but being a god, he's just so overpowered that anyone who he's against, unless you're Thanos, doesn't have a hope at all.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it just takes that wee bit of suspense away from me a wee bit, because you know that Thor's going to ultimately win. And there's not much that can be done to defeat him. I don't know if you feel similar.
Well, I mean, I think they've done a good job of counteracting though with the last two Thor movies though, with Gore, who we'll get into. I feel like he was really, really powerful. Also, Hela was like crazy powerful. I feel like she seemed more powerful than Thanos. And when I was watching that movie, I think they did a really good job of making her seem invincible. And I was like, how the heck is he going to beat this chick? But obviously managed to. And I mean, with Gore, I didn't feel so much like that. I did kind of feel confident he was going to overcome him. But I still definitely feel like Gore was a good match for him.
Yeah. See the first scene when he's in like the desert and he's protecting his daughter. I didn't actually realise it was Christian Bale at the very start.
Yeah.
It wasn't until a couple of scenes later, I think, when he met Zeus. That was it Zeus?
No, the first guy
who
was
was
just a god. I don't know who he was.
Because that's where I get confused, because I thought the first god, I thought that was Zeus, because he looked quite similar. So I was like, did he not die earlier in the film?
Yeah.
So I didn't actually realise it was Christian Bale till the second scene he was in, but it becomes so obvious because he's got a very recognisable face.
Yeah.
But I thought Christian Bale and the villain, because Marvel isn't really famed overall for its villains, but I
Uh-huh.
thought he was a really good part of the
Yeah,
film.
he was really good because obviously at the start they gave him the tragic backstory of
Yeah.
his daughter dying and him finding the god and the god not caring, and then obviously his rage towards that and then being corrupted by, I think it's the Necrosword it's called. It made him super powerful.
Yeah.
So it was like it was like, I can't remember who it was that said, it might have been Zach that said when we were coming out of the cinema, was like, you can't even really be mad at him for doing what he done, especially with the way it ended. Like, and that's what is another good villain to have, like good trait to have in a villain, is having a bit of a nuanced backstory where he's not 100% evil. Like, I mean, his actions are evil, but the way he's gone about it, and some of the people that he's killed, like that god that he killed at the start, wasn't really a nice guy.
But when you meet the gods in the big hall, or what do you call it, a hall?
I think it was Omnipotent City.
Yeah, well, in there, in the city.
Uh-huh.
You see what particularly Zeus is like and the way he treats people.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he does maybe have a point there.
It was interesting as well because when I saw Zeus was going to be in it, I also thought Hercules would make an appearance, which again we'll come on to later. But I'm surprised with the direction that they've taken him. I didn't expect Zeus to be kind of bad guy.
Yeah.
He's not super. I wouldn't call him describing. Well, I mean, he's pretty bad. Like, he doesn't really care about humans at all.
He doesn't actually die in the end, though, does he? Because he's shown later on.
No, he doesn't. He doesn't die.
So, yeah. What did he get? Like, what was his death? Like, what happened to him again?
So we're kind of jumping ahead a little bit, but when they get to Omnipotent City, their plan is to steal Zeus's Thunderbolt, lightning bolt thing, because no one's willing to help them fight Thor. So he steals that, and when he gets a hold of it, he basically throws it at him and it goes through his chest, and you think he dies. But I think the whole point is that Necrosword that what's his face had, Gore, was like a special weapon that could kill gods.
Yeah.
And so it seems like you can't. It's not as straightforward to just kill a god.
Yeah.
Which makes me kind of think Loki's death in Infinity War is a little bit like. So how was Thanos able to choke him?
Really confused about Loki now with like the Loki TV show. It's like I'm not even sure if Loki's dead or alive in the kind of current timeline now.
Without going on too much of a tangent about that, my understanding about Loki is he is the Loki from the reality that we are focused on is dead. The Loki that we watched a series about was the one that was in an alternate reality.
Multiverse sort of thing.
Yeah, and multiversal one that was found in Endgame. Basically we just followed his story and had an important part of a story because he basically opened up the multiverse with what he done to. It's not Kang. I think it's called. I can't remember what it's called. Something.
I think it is called that.
Well, Kang is like who he's like he is, but I don't think it's called that in the show. It's called like the something one.
I remember them.
But anyway, again, we're going on a tangent here. So we've discussed Gore's initial introduction. We've discussed Guardians of the Galaxy's lack of involvement. From there, I think it goes to Jane and showing what she's up to and how she's got cancer and she's struggling with that. I don't know how they done it, but obviously you see later on Jane gets the power of Thor and she's super built for it. I saw pictures of her flexing in the mirror and stuff like that. She looked amazing for it. Like, how the hell did she go? Like, the way they must have filmed the movie must have been weird because they either must have got her when she was like, really skinny and then got her to bulk up, or they must have done some sort of CGI thing or something.
They can do so much. They can create people with CGI now. So
yeah, but I was like, it was so well done. Like, if it was CGI, I know for a fact that she was built for it because I've seen pictures of her like that in real life, like, looking that strong. So if they did some CGI to her to make her look like really weak and thin, like, it was amazing because she looked. That's what she looked like. She was. So I'll need to look into that to see how they done it. But if that was CGI, it was flawless CGI. And it was interesting to put her in that position. I feel like it kind of explains as to why she's been quite quiet in the MCU until this point. So I think it was. I mean, it's never nice to be like, oh yeah, Jane had cancer, that was good. But like, it's a good way to kind of bring her back into the story, I think.
Yeah, I was a wee bit mixed on that. I thought Natalie Portman gave a really good performance. The way that she becomes like Lady Thor, or what's the other term?
The Mighty Thor.
The Mighty Thor,
Yeah.
because that was a thing in the film, wasn't it?
Aye.
The the hammer essentially makes her Thor. Like I always thought like Thor was a god, and the hammer like enhanced him. I didn't feel like it gave all the power. So I felt like how she went from just being a regular scientist to being a superhero just because of the weapon. I don't know if I'm missing something here. I just didn't quite sit quite right with me.
In the first Thor movie, when Odin banishes Thor to Earth, he whispers into it, whom I can't remember exactly how it's worded. Basically, whoever holds this hammer shall have the power of Thor. So he banishes that. So basically, that hammer gives you the powers of Thor, whatever powers he had, and it was explained to Thor by his dad in Ragnarok, like, for you, this channels your power. But it does say that whoever holds the hammer gets the power of Thor. And obviously, Captain America holds it in Endgame and has lightning powers and stuff. So I think that's where it comes from.
But Captain America was already like a super soldier, so he had that advantage on him.
Kind of lightning powers and stuff like that as well. But
they had to explain it somehow. It wasn't terrible. I just thought it was a wee bit like she went from just being like a human to a god just because she was using that was like we could pick it up and become Thor. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I guess that's that message that anyone can become superhero.
Like if we are worthy, which I definitely don't know if I am, then we would be able to pick it up and have the same powers as Thor. Because based on what he said, that seems like it kind of checks out to me. So I didn't really think too deeply about that, just because I always remembered that Odin said that in the first one.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of cool with it.
I'm not. I think I've only seen Thor: The Dark World, and I think I've only seen Ragnarok once. I would like to point out that I am a big MCU fan, particularly in the last couple of years, but I didn't see like the first couple of phases in the cinema. I saw some of them, and then I started at maybe phase 3, going to each one. So I had to go back and fill gaps. So I'm growing as a Marvel fan, but I wouldn't claim to be an expert. So but it's pretty good for like the last couple of phases.
I would say so. Like, I'm talking to you and I don't get it. You don't know what you're talking about. But I obviously, again, to try and not tangent too much, basically, she gets the powers of Thor. She visits New Asgard, and you see Valkyrie there, and she's running New Asgard. And New Asgard looks like it's kind of a utopia. Like everything seems to be going great. She's super famous there.
Very commercial.
And then I do Old Spice. And then while all that's going on, I think Thor gets a distress signal from Sif, who was one of the forgotten characters of Thor's backstory, because they were quite a Sif. I can't remember the rest of the guys, are so forgettable. There was the cool Japanese guy that had a mace, and there was the other two goofy guys.
I didn't know you were talking about that. That forgettable.
So in Ragnarok, I think it was they were literally killed off in just a second. They were like big side characters in the first two Thor movies. Like, it was quite funny as well, because I remember watching somebody talking about the first Thor and how like they didn't actually show them being friends. They basically have a scene where Thor goes, "Remember when we did this and we did this?" It's basically Thor like, you should care about these people because they're my friends and we did all these things. They're actually just showing you. But they were basically just disposed of instantly in Ragnarok, and Korg made actually quite a funny jab at that when at the start, when it was like, "Oh, this guy," and just shows them down, and this guy and shows them down, like as if they weren't very important. But she was basically the last leftover one.
Right.
She's in trouble. It sounds like Gore got a hold of them all and killed them all. So Gore basically, from there, is becoming they're kind of saying, right, we need to go and deal with this guy after they get Sif and bring her back. And they go to New Asgard. So they basically, Gore comes in with all the shadow monsters.
Yeah.
Jane's there, she already has the power of Thor, she's kicking ass. And Valkyrie comes out kicking ass. I thought Valkyrie was really good in this movie, by the way. She was not somebody that I was like super, like I thought she was cool in Thor, but I wasn't like, oh, she's a great character.
I thought she was a standout.
Yeah.
There was quite a lot of wee bits where it was like, I'll tell you the story of Thor and Jane. Did you like those wee interludes?
Yeah, I mean, I love Korg. I think Korg's just really
it was quite useful though. I went to see this with my dad, who's seen no Thor films. My dad saw this film, having seen none. He's seen like Marvel films, like seen like Spider-Man and different ones. But imagine that with no context.
Yeah, I know you would be so lost. Like that's what I was saying to Skiggs, I think last night when I was at work. I mentioned all these people as if you're going to know who they are, but most of the people that watch this are my pals. I don't know what I'm talking And I was saying, like, see, if I was to get into Marvel now, I don't think I would have got into it because it's so convoluted now and there's so much going on.
You need to know so much backstory just to understand what's going on, which is good for the dedicated fans, but it's not, as you say, the best entry point.
Like, I'm getting Marvel fatigue now from all the shows. Like, I've not seen Moon Knight, I've not finished Hawkeye.
Hawkeye's really good, by the way.
Marvel, we've had this stuff already. But I kind of just got, like, it was alright when it was in lockdown, they were putting out a show, like, continuously.
Yeah.
But now that, like, things are happening again and I can go out, like, I don't have the time to just watch these shows all the time.
Streaming services will always be there.
Yeah, I know they'll always be there, but then it's like, I don't know, I feel like if you're not watching them when they come out, you're kind of out of the loop. But I think my plan is, I'm just going to wait. If there's one that I need to have watched before a movie comes out, then I'll try and binge watch it before we go and see it. But I'm not kind of forcing myself to stay up to date with all the shows.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I did like those little bits from Korg. And also as well, I thought that the relationship between Thor and Jane was really well done.
Yeah.
In the first two, again, it was a bit like they were kind of telling us rather than showing us that they were a good relationship. Whereas in this one, because again they had the montage and you saw them like being a couple together and looking really happy and stuff, and then it was you saw them kind of falling out of love a little bit. It was you really like cared about the relationship, and again we'll come on to it later about how it ended up.
Yeah.
I'm not ashamed to say I had tears in my eyes at the end.
I didn't.
Yeah, a lot of people said that, like.
Not because I didn't think it was sad. I don't cry at films often.
Yeah, I don't cry at films a lot, so I was surprised that I was, but I found myself really invested in really about that. But yeah, so I thought that was another really well done aspect of the movie. But yeah, basically they get back to there. They're all fighting. Thor sees Jane, is a bit thrown off by it all. Gore comes into the story, kidnaps a bunch of kids, and then that kind of is where the kind of direction the film goes. They're getting the kids back. I
know it was just for plot, but it took him ages to realise that she had to take like the helmet off to know it was her. Like, I know you've been really surprised, but surely, like, if you saw like the love of your life wearing like a helmet like that, you would know who they were.
Possibly, but I mean, like, she was extremely muscular compared to.
And she had really blonde hair. Did she have really blonde hair because she became Thor, and Thor tends to have blonde hair?
I think so, because in the start I remember having brown hair, so I never actually thought about that until cool.
That's why I'm here. Yeah. There was something I noticed. See the bit with the children. How the main kid is it Heimdall's
son? Yeah.
Son. Wait, I can't talk about this, but yeah, I'll talk about this at the end.
Right. Okay. Cool.
Because it ruins a bit later on.
Yeah. From there, I mean, we don't need to go through the whole entire plot of the movie, but from there, basically the kind of direction is set. They're kind of going to try and find these kids, bring them back, stop Gore from opening Infinity, I think it's called, and basically wishing to kill all gods, whatever. So yeah, I thought I've not really talked about Christian Bale myself, but I thought he was brilliant in this movie. Like, and the tone was balanced really, really well, I thought. And the reason why I came to that conclusion was normally if the tone's not in my head as being off, I know it was a good tone, because if something is tonally imbalanced, I get a bit like, I can tell this is like, it feels weird. I feel like the tone's wrong. I
felt it was a wee bit.
Really?
I felt there was the pure slapstick humour and then quite a serious villain. So, as I said, the second half for me is when I think the second hour is the stronger hour. I don't know what your views on the halves of the film. I much preferred the second half, personally.
Yeah, I mean, I thought the second half was brilliant, but I really enjoyed the first half as well. I was laughing majority of the time. Like, I do have quite a silly sense of humour, quite similar to Taika Waititi though, and I think that's why I enjoyed the start so much.
Does he voice Korg?
Yeah, he does,
yeah.
Aye. So,
I only found that out today when I was watching a YouTube video.
Aye, nice. He's really, really talented. He's a good actor as well. He was in, what was that? Is it New Guy? Ryan Reynolds did a movie.
Sounds right.
He played an NPC character, and he played a villain in that, and he was pretty good in that too. And I obviously he's great as Korg. I love Korg so much.
I'm a wee bit mixed on him because he's going to direct a Star Wars film.
Yeah.
The amount of humour in this worried me a bit in terms of a Star Wars film, but he has directed episodes of The Mandalorian before, and it was like the finale to season 1, which was good. So yeah, I think he probably will do a good job when it comes to it.
He showed in this movie with like he can do serious when he wants to. I think because of the direction they've taken Thor, I think people get this impression that like all his movies are like that, but he's got quite a diverse CV. Did you know he actually directed some of the American In-Betweeners episodes?
God.
Yeah.
that doesn't fill me with confidence.
Because I watched anytime I'd watched Taika Waititi and anything or he directed anything, I was like, oh, he just doesn't miss. He's always makes good stuff. But then I found that out and I was like, oh, that's disappointing.
Yeah,
everyone's got to start somewhere. That was before he was big.
Can we edit that bit out?
It's a little fact that I don't think a lot of people know, so I feel pretty proud to know that.
Yeah, it's good.
But apart from that, anything else that I've watched them do has been brilliant. And I think, like I said in this movie, even if you personally felt like the tone was maybe not balanced as well, the parts that were serious.
These happened later in the film, but yeah, you're right. There was some really strong scenes in the second half of the film.
And I can't see Star Wars, like I know Star Wars, we kind of had this discussion, like certainly Rise of Skywalker has a more of a Marvel theme like feeling to it than I would say a Star Wars feeling. But I can't see Star Wars letting him take it that far.
He'll quickly get the chop if see if he goes down the wrong route. Like they've fired about 3 directors already, I think.
What show is that for?
It's a film, I think.
Film. Do you know what film it is now?
It's not been announced yet. It's literally just called Untitled Taika Waititi film.
Right. Okay.
Doesn't really give a lot away, but
interesting. But more tangents.
The multiverse of tangents.
This is basically like the multiverse of Seismic Cinema we're on right now. I mean, I didn't want to go down the route of where we just go through the whole plot of the entire movie. But I basically when we get towards the end, there's a couple of things I want to bring up because I saw a few people complaining about this. What did you think of the whole arc of Thor finding the new weapon and Stormbreaker being jealous and Stormbreaker being jealous of Mjolnir?
I liked it.
I thought that was funny. A few people were saying that was
that's probably the bits of humour I remember the most.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking my dad must be like, why is he talking to the hammer like that?
Yeah.
But I love that bit. It was good humour because there was a wee bit of truth to it. Like he probably does miss his former weapon a bit as well.
And
so,
also that the Zeus's lightning bolt was really cool. So I would
that landed for me.
Yeah. I thought that was good. Also the other, what did you think of the goats? I found the goats absolutely hilarious.
Right, it was funny, but I think they overdid it.
Yeah.
Because everything happened maybe 10 times.
Yeah. It was just why I found it so funny was that I kept forgetting about them and then they would just arrive somewhere and the goats would just crash into somewhere screaming and I just.
I'm glad they had relevance in the sense they were the reindeer for the sleigh.
Yeah.
But maybe a bit overused.
I found it really great how weird they are making Marvel movies now. They proper just do not care. And people will still go and watch it, and I love that because I think it's exciting for the future of Marvel. But I can definitely see why some people see. I mean, you're thinking about them when you're laughing, so they definitely work.
Jake, you can make the noise.
No, absolutely not.
Don't do it.
No, I mean we could edit it out, but I'm not going to attempt it just because you'll probably never look at me the same if you try that. But I thought they were really funny. I also really liked that story arc as well. There was literally, I think there was only one part where I was watching it and felt a little bit cringed out with them trying humour. I was see when Quill and Thor were trying to do a secret handshake and it was just getting dragged out.
Yeah.
I proper rolled my eyes at that part. But apart from that, everything else I thought was funny.
Yeah.
And I just felt like the reason why I felt like the tone was really well balanced is because I can imagine them acting that way when they're in a situation where they don't feel threat, and then as soon as they are in a situation where they feel threat with Gore coming in, they would quickly change their personality like that because Thor's like, right, okay, I need to be on the ball here because this guy's actually a threat to me. Whereas when he's fighting those little shadow monsters with Jane and Valkyrie, or when he's fighting those guards at Omnipotent City, Like he's not worried because he knows he's going to take
Yeah.
it out.
I thought the movie length was good. Like,
Yeah,
you know, it's like we did. We've obviously you weren't on it, but we talked about it. No, we saw at the same time the new Batman, which I really enjoyed, but it was half an hour too long for me. Like 2 hours,
nearly 3 hours, wasn't it?
2 hours is quite nice.
Yeah.
Maybe you could stretch to 2 hours, like 15, 20, but yeah.
I know. I certainly didn't mind that. I mean, I think you could have. It could have been longer, and it still could have been good. Like for example, they maybe could have stretched out the Guardians a little bit more and brought them into it more. But I did quite like it because it did feel fast paced. I didn't feel like I was bored at any point. I wasn't looking at my watch.
It
was paced well, I felt, and it was partly because of how short it was compared to normal.
There was enough, like, do you know how like most films there's like subsequent, there's not just like one battle at the end nowadays, there's like 5. I felt like there was enough without it being too much.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like, sometimes you watch a film and it's like, here we go again.
Yeah.
Like it just keeps going. When's it ending?
That's another reason why I liked gore in the movie so much. Like this is probably a reference you won't get, but for people out there that will, I'll tell you. There is I'm a massive Final Fantasy fan. If you can see from my tattoos, that's Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy 7 is the most iconic one, and the most iconic villain is Sephiroth, and that, right?
Nerd.
Yeah, I know. Coming from the guy with the Star Wars top on. But the reason why he works so well as a villain is because he's barely in the game. You just hear about how powerful he is, and it like pure builds up to him being there. And I got the same vibe from Gore in that movie as well, because he was barely in it. Like he was like when he was in it, it was proper, like stole the show.
I don't feel like he was barely in it. I feel like he was in it sufficiently enough.
Yeah, but it wasn't like, I don't think he was like in it loads. Though it was in at the start. It kind of came in a little bit at the when he fought Thor briefly in New Asgard, and then you saw the little scene with him with the kids, and then you had the fight with him at the end.
He was present though.
Yeah, but
I got a wee bit of Voldemort vibes from him.
Yeah,
just appearance wise.
Aye, yeah.
I thought he was actually quite scary.
Apparently, that's why they didn't go with the original character design and not come my nose, because they were worried that people would make those comparisons.
Yeah,
I
did it anyway. Yeah.
I think the English accent as well doesn't help with those comparisons either. But no, basically, I felt like he was not in the movie too much, and that was a big reason as to why I thought he worked. And also, when he was there, he felt really creepy. He looked really creepy. And he felt really powerful as well. So I thought he was just brilliant.
Bale's versatility is great though.
Bale's a brilliant actor. I forget how good an actor he is.
You seen American Psycho?
No, I've not.
Check it out.
I've seen the famous scenes from him, and that he like pure chops a guy up the axe or something.
Spoilers.
Yeah, sorry. That movie's like what, 30 years old now?
So, I only saw it last year, so.
Yeah, true. Right, okay. We'll need to put a spoiler warning up on the screen or something for later on.
Yes.
But so I think another really nice touch that I liked in the movie as well was how the kids got powers.
Right. That's the bit I wanted to talk about earlier.
Right, okay.
Right. Why was it such a big plot point to save the kids if they have all these powers, or was it Thor that gave them the powers?
Thor gave them the powers.
Right, okay. That makes more sense, because see, if they were like that powerful, I was like, why are they like hiding in a basket, and why is everyone trying to save them?
I see in that point, because I thought it was quite a good joke as well, where he's like, you can see obviously Thor's like very insecure about other people having his power. He basically gave them all the power of Thor, and then like he kind of mumbled under his breath for a limited time only.
Right, okay.
Give everyone the power of Thor.
So that shows you are a lot more detail oriented when it comes to like Marvel compared, like I'm like that with other franchises. So you do miss wee things.
Yeah.
Because I've not seen like the Thor films enough times to know all the wee details. So maybe that's the wee things I miss. So.
Thor's one of my favourite Avengers. He used to be my favourite Avenger. I now think Captain America's probably my favourite.
Iron Man's my favourite. I know he's... Spoilers, not with us.
I think if somebody's watching a Thor Love and Thunder review, they probably know Iron Man's dead.
Still wrong.
Yeah. But I really like that, and the reason why is because I think if I was a kid watching that and saw all these kids with all these weapons, like killing all these big shadow monsters, it would make me just feel like I could do that, and it would get me so hyped watching it. Yeah.
Just something small I really liked. See, when they were out, when they were travelling to wherever they were going, and it's like they're on like the boat, and it looked really nice, like the not water, but Space water.
Yeah.
I thought that was really nice.
Yeah, like the Bifrost.
Yeah, that's it. Space water.
Yeah.
Coin that here.
But yeah, no, there was some incredible shots in this movie as well. I can't remember what part of it is, but there was one point where there's like a big, massive like planet in the background, and they're looking at some little thing, and it was like there were some amazing shots in this movie.
There was a shot I like just at the start when Thor's just jumping through the air to like strike down a foe.
Yeah,
And it's like the way they kind of shadowed against the backdrop. I don't know if you remember the bit.
no,
It was really near the start of the film. There was another shot which I can't definitely remember now, but it was really good.
aye,
It might come back to me.
yeah, but no, there was the cinematography was good as well. Like I think Taika Waititi is just like a really good filmmaker. Like he can do really good edits, really good cinematography, and it looks so. The colors again, like Ragnarok, were so vibrant and amazing.
Yeah.
I even felt like it was slightly better in that department than Ragnarok. I still think Ragnarok's better, and it might even just be because Ragnarok was the first one that he done, so it was more fresher and new feeling. But I think it was like I don't think it's far off Ragnarok in terms of quality, in my opinion.
The colourful nature. There was a good. So you know that scene when they get to the near the end of the film. Is that when they're getting to the shot?
The Infinity.
Yeah, and it's like black and white.
Uh-huh.
So it was a good contrast.
Yeah.
That
Aye, the Shadow
sequence-
Realm.
Yeah, the
They
Shadow
were in.
Realm.
Yeah,
There was
that's
a good.
it.
There was a good contrast between that and the brightness of the rest of the film.
Yeah, aye, that was true as well. And it kind of, again, that switch, it switched the tone at that point as well, like really well. Like it went from being like a happy, fun movie to being like really serious. And I thought that was really cool. There was also one more thing that I wanted to talk about while I'm thinking of that. Was there any other points about the movie you wanted to bring up?
There was a point where I was like, I thought they'd done a Rise of Skywalker. Spoilers for that. So when they kill off Chewbacca and C-3PO,
Oh,
they
yeah.
did that with Korg, and I
Yeah.
thought they were going to do that with another big character, which we'll discuss at the end. I'm glad they didn't kill off Korg, if he can even be killed off, because he's great.
Yeah.
But when I thought they were doing it twice,
Yeah.
I was a bit like, they should have had a bit more guts here and just went for it.
Yeah.
But that was resolved by the end of the film.
Aye.
That was just something I was thinking when I was watching it.
Yeah, cool. Fair enough. I get that because I absolutely hated that as well. Like it was so quick how the fake out was like it was literally like 2 seconds later,
Yes.
like, oh my god, Chewbacca's dead, and then the next scene is Chewbacca like, "Nah."
I'm
Like,
for
totally
one
fine.
he's alive.
So that was that really annoyed me when I watched Star Wars, but that whole
It wasn't
movie
that I
annoyed me.
wanted Chewbacca and to a lesser extent C-3PO.
It's like
it's just that fake out.
conviction. It's like if you're gonna choose to do it, do it. I think that was the biggest problem I had with Rise of Skywalker. Again, we're going on a tangent quick. I don't get to talk about movies that much on my own podcast. But like the Last Jedi, we both said that we liked that movie, and they made a lot of choices that a lot of people weren't happy with in that movie. But instead of sticking to those choices and going with it and making a good finale, the whole finale was spent just fixing all the issues that were created by the Last Jedi, instead of just having conviction and going with it. And they were even doing it in its own movie.
That's where like Game of Thrones was so epic. Just you never knew who was like no one was safe,
Yeah,
and that
exactly.
adds a lot of tension to a film and a
Aye.
franchise.
Yeah, but the wee thing that I wanted to bring up, it's not a big thing, but I thought it was pretty cool, was in Infinity, there was a head of like some sort of statue that was taken off, and this was obviously supposed to be like some really important place in the universe where you could grant a wish and change everything. There was a Celestial's head that was like on a statue, so I thought that was a pretty cool Easter egg, because they're basically like the gods of Marvel, so that was pretty cool.
So the Infinity is going to become the next big threat for Phase 4.
Possibly. I have the kind of vibe that it's going to be just a throwaway thing that maybe might get referenced in the future. I think it's going to be more to do with Celestials and stuff like that. They might bring in Galactus, or Kang might become a big threat. Because what they tend to do, like they kind of, there seemed to be more, like you said earlier, there seems to be more of a clear like path with the first phase and beyond. Like Thanos was always in the background doing things, or people were working for Thanos. I don't really see
anybody, like I don't see anybody in the background controlling everything to where they're kind of working towards.
Maybe that's a good change though.
Yeah.
So it's not just the same.
Aye, so it's like, because like I was saying, what I did like about this movie was how self-contained it was, but I like it definitely doesn't feel like they're moving towards something. Which again, it's good because it kind of keeps you on your toes at like what's going to be happening. But
Yeah.
I have no idea. But that I kind of get the vibe it's just going to be a kind of throwaway, because there's lots of things that are like super powerful that sound like, oh, that could be really important to Marvel, and then it's like never brought up again. Or
we can look back on this and
yeah,
see what happens.
What is your vibe that it might become important?
I'm not claiming that. When I was listening to some of the YouTubers I listened to, and they mentioned that the Infinity could become something, like, because they can grant anything, that might become quite a big thing.
See, the thing is as well, I'm big on the MCU, but I'm not big on the comics. Like anything I know about the comics is all based on like me watching other people talking about.
That's
comics.
how you pick up things, isn't it?
Yeah, because I like the comics is the kind of thing where like I think I would enjoy it if I get into it, but it's where I start
It's
with
an expensive hobby.
it. Yeah, that too as well. You can get there's like a Netflix of like Marvel comics you can get. It's like $5 a month or something. It's called Marvel Infinity, and you can read any of the comics, which sounds pretty cool. But
that sounds cool.
yeah, but again, I don't even know where I would start. Like, there's so many comics, but so yeah. I think, is there anything else? Like, I know you wanted to discuss. I keep going to call her Padme, Natalie Portman.
Yeah, so it looked like she realizes that using the hammer is actually starting to make her cancer worse because her body can't fight against it anymore. And she kind of took not well, but then she went back to a hospital in New Asgard.
Yeah,
and it looked like she was just going to recover there, or they would find out a way to cure her in universe, and then she would be in it in the future.
Yeah,
and I was like, I didn't want it to happen, but they could have just went for it.
Yeah.
But then when she rejoined the fight, even though it would be her last effort, that changed it, and that actually enhanced the film because it increased the stakes.
Yeah.
And gave that emotional climax to the movie.
Aye. And it made you really care about their relationship. Like I said, like in the first two, she was just there being Natalie Portman, but she actually gave a really good performance in this movie, and you felt sorry for Thor and her for like finally figuring things out, and then she dies.
Yeah, I think he, in a weird way, was quite accepting of it in the end. Like, he didn't seem overly devastated. I don't know if just...
I mean, he might just become numb to losing people. Like, he's lost like literally every friend, family member, love interest he could ever have lost.
Yeah, I think that scene on the boat with the two of them was really good. Their main dialogue scene.
Yeah, but they kind of figure things out.
Yeah, I thought that was really good.
Yeah, it was.
And obviously, well, I'll let you're hosting, so I'll let you the other side of the finale.
So basically, it turns out that Gore, instead of wishing for all gods to be killed, he wishes for his daughter to come back to life. And it kind of gives Thor a new purpose to where he's looking after Gore's daughter, which, fun fact, is actually Chris Hemsworth's daughter.
I told him that earlier.
Yeah, no, I knew this already.
I know, but I still told you.
You told me something I already knew. You informed me about Chris Hemsworth's son being in the montage at the start. I didn't know that, but I did know it was his daughter. And yeah, there's like a cute little montage at the end of him basically caring for her. And then it shows that she's going to be like she's basically got powers of a god, I think, or something, somehow. I don't remember how that came into it. But
and there's a bit about the title of the film as well.
Yeah, obviously, at the end it's revealed that their kind of tag team partnership name is Love and Thunder.
Because I'd spent the whole film sort of trying to like work out what the title was referencing.
Yeah, like I always assumed that Love and Thunder was in reference to fact that Jane was coming back and Thor and her were in love and they're both the gods of thunder, so I just kind of assumed that. But it was quite a nice little misdirect, like that again, coming back to Star Wars, like how it was called The Last Jedi. It made you think it was going to be about The Last Jedi, but actually it was how it wasn't The Last Jedi.
It seems to be they are setting up like the kind of new Young Avengers.
Yeah,
there's been quite a few younger characters in.
That's true.
This Marvel,
Morgan Stark, Gore's daughter. Who else?
Can't remember offhand, but there are others.
Aye, Miss Marvel. Yeah, aye. So cool. But I think we've been talking for a while, so we can probably give about time to give our like overall thoughts on the movie, what would you kind of rate it? I tend to like to rate Marvel movies in the tiers. I don't know if you know like S tier, A tier, B tier, but
Right.
if you want to give I could give a score out of 10 as well, so I'll probably do both. But what would you say?
I'll just do out of 10. I was thinking about this before. I'll probably give it a 7.
7. I think that's fair. I mean, I have a tendency to overhype movies when I see them in the cinema.
Yeah.
I would give it at the moment like an 8, but I would rank it like in terms of tiers. If we were going to put it in a tier list, I would maybe put it in like B tier. So it's not quite, maybe A tier, but it's not S tier. Definitely not S tier.
So what tier are you on right now?
So basically, the way that the tier list works, if you don't know how the tier list works, it's hard to explain.
Lots of different.
So
Places
S
do it
tier
differently.
is like basically, I think it's like stands for superb. It's like a Japanese grading system or something like that is where it originated from. But S tier is the top. Like I would put like say like Infinity War, like Winter Soldier, like all my favorite Marvel movies in that category. A tier is like just below that, where like they're very very good, but they're not quite like maybe I'd put like First Avenger in there. Like it's not quite like in my top Marvel movies, but I really like it. And then B tier is like a step below that, where I'd say it's like it's good and I enjoyed it, but it's not. It didn't blow me away, basically.
I maybe be in that one.
Yeah, that's what I think. It was a good time. I really enjoyed it. I don't think it's bad. I just it didn't blow me away. It wasn't like reinventing the wheel. It was just fun.
I just wasn't the first kind of hour. I just wasn't really enjoying it that much.
Yeah,
But then, yeah, the second half.
I'm surprised.
The second half did.
yeah. I mean, I don't know if the fact that I watched it with Natalie and Blair, and especially Natalie's got a very distinctive laugh. Like I could just hear her like laughing when funny things were happening, and it was
I was
making
a
me
bit
laugh.
worried. I was a bit worried, like how I don't say when you go to cinema. I was kind of like, is my dad enjoying it? And I like wanted him to enjoy it.
Yeah.
But I knew he didn't have much of a background in. He
Ah.
just sees random Marvel films.
Yeah,
So I think I was maybe thinking about his enjoyment as well, not just my own.
aye, possibly. Whereas we were all like really excited about this day for a long time. We planned it for ages, and like we're all into Marvel. So maybe I kind of was just in a better. Also, the cinema we were in was class, by the way. See if you ever want to go to a good cinema and you stay near Paisley. I mean, you probably know about the cinema already, but Showcase Linwood is awesome.
Support the local Dunnan cinema.
Yeah, true. You never know. It could be a future sponsorship deal in there somewhere for us. Dunedin Cinema is great.
We are
but-
very lucky to have one on our doorstep.
Yeah, no, 100%, because there's a lot of small towns that do not. But yeah, the pick and mix was extortionate, by the way. I'm just going to say, can I just go into like a Showcase Linwood review right now? It was like £10 from a pick and mix, right? That's crazy prices.
It's pretty standard nowadays.
True. But the actual cinema itself, Scream was obviously massive. We were in a great position in the cinema, and the seats were awesome. They were leather recliners. Had a wee button on them, you press them, you like sit right back, and had a big massive drinks holder, super comfortable. Like, aye,
Tangent.
but yeah, Dunedin Cinema needs to get on that. But aye, maybe I was in a more better viewing party than you were to maybe enjoy it a bit more. But aye, that probably concludes our viewing, our review.
Viewing.
Kind of concludes our review of Thor. What we also wanted to talk about today was obviously Colin's got his own podcast. You started your podcast a little bit before me. Me and Colin have both been friends for years. Like we've known each other since grammar school.
Yeah.
And I had no idea that you were wanting to start a podcast. I don't think you were aware that I really wanted to do a podcast for years and never thought it was possible. We thought it'd be quite good to talk about podcasting and how it's like a lot easier to get into than you would think. Like I think especially people saw me come into this big studio here. It's like, G4 Claims podcast studio. By the way, if you're ever interested in doing your own podcast, get in touch with Greg at G4 Podcast Studio on Instagram. It's great facilities, very reasonable rates. Greg's great, and a lot of we're all drinking G4 Claims water right now. It's very tasty and refreshing. It's all complimentary. There's alcohol here you can have, coffee. It's a great venue. You can see how lovely it looks. I've also been in the other studio as well, which is really nice.
Grass on the ceiling.
There's grass on the ceiling. So it's even like strange and wonderful and colourful. Look at that. Tell your story. I don't know if you can see it. It's in shot, but yeah, great venue. You can come here if you're interested. But also, even outside of that, how basically that's a really long way of asking this question. How did you get started in podcasting? First of all, what made you want to do podcasting? That's a good question.
I think a couple of years, probably 2016, I really started getting into YouTube. And just, it's like over the years you find YouTubers you love, you check out their stuff every week, and eventually I think most people have that thought. It's like, could I do that?
Yeah.
And I had wanted to do it for a couple of years, but I always had that big phobia of putting my face out there.
Yeah.
Which I think a lot of people have. And I'd thought about it on and off for quite a while, and I was just round my friend Paul's house, who's the other half of Seismic Cinema.
Shout out to Paul. Unfortunately couldn't be here because he's playing a final at bowls.
Good luck, Paul.
Yeah, good luck, Paul. I'm a bowler too. One of these days we might do a bowling podcast. I don't know. But yeah, good luck, Paul. Anyway, carry on.
And I was just around Paul's house for dinner or something, and I just said offhand, I said, I'd been thinking about it quite a lot myself, and I was like, oh, do you want to... I think I was like, oh, I might quite fancy doing a podcast. I can't remember if I said to him or I just mentioned it. And I didn't really expect Paul to say yes, and then he did. And then we started like the brainstorming, like spent ages thinking about a name. So we went for Seismic Cinema. The reason we went for that was for those that have seen the Star Wars prequels, Boba Fett's weapon, the seismic charge, makes a really cool booming sound, which I'm not going to try and recreate. So we went for that. We cheat a wee bit because we do talk about TV shows, which isn't technically cinema, but so we spent ages coming up with a name. And I had actually seen, just through something I watched myself, that there was an app called Anchor, and I would strongly recommend using Anchor.
I use Anchor too, even though I have a studio. It's really handy.
So basically, Anchor, you can record audio podcasts, and you can upload them. It automatically goes onto Spotify, but you can also get a code that links it to like Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, all the podcasts, and it's really just simple to use, totally free. And there's another website called Headliner, which you can convert your audio into a video, and you can add like the kind of what do you call them? The audio lines.
Oh yeah.
So that's where we started off, and then we eventually, I said to Paul, I was like, do you want to start doing video? So we started making live action podcasts as well, and what we did that through was StreamYard. I feel like we're promoting all these tools, but just to let people know.
Well, we're kind of showing how easy it is to actually do podcasts.
So StreamYard allows you to record videos, but also stream, and you can stream to like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, 3 different places at once. And you can also pre-record your videos. So what we often do is we record them, download an audio file and a video file, and then schedule them. So they're going on to like Spotify, but they're also going on to YouTube. So we've got the YouTube channel as well. And yeah, so it's just something I'd wanted to do for a while. Me and Paul never spoken about it till the day we spoke about it.
Yeah.
And then we just decided to go for it, and we spent quite a bit of time deliberating on names.
Yeah.
And then we did our first one, which was the Book of Boba Fett, and we reviewed the first 4 episodes.
Yeah. And I really enjoyed watching, like, I don't think I would have got into Book of Boba Fett as much as I did if I wasn't like watching the show along with your podcasts.
Oh, right, no, you're watching the show.
Watching the show, listening to the podcast. So like I would watch an episode, and then I would listen to your podcast after to kind of recap it. And that's what I love about podcasting, is like, because I have a lot of interests that I don't share with a lot of people, and it's good to just listen to a podcast and like, it's kind of like being part of a conversation that
like
you're not really
friends.
in. Yeah, it's like having friends. Yeah, I know. Which is, but I have loads of friends, but we're not into like the same things. Like a lot of us, like we do have shared interests, obviously, but there's a lot of things that I'm into that not a lot of my friends are into. So it's nice to watch podcasts and get into that. But that's another tangent, the multiverse of tangents. But yeah, so basically, how I got started in podcasts was I had always the first thing that wanted me to do a podcast was I basically Cammy watched a podcast with a guy called Mo Godat. We talked about this a lot in our first episode, who is a really, really smart guy who talked about happiness and really helped shape a lot of my ideas on what happiness is and how to be happy, and resonated with me and Cammy a lot. And me and Cammy have both had our share of struggles, more so Cammy. If you want to find out more about that, episode 1, go and watch it. And basically I thought it'd be really interesting for us to sit down and have a chat honestly about what our experiences have been in life and what we think are good ways to be happier. and it did resonate with a lot of people, obviously, because it got a lot of views. But I didn't know how we would go about doing that. And then, weirdly, like a week or two later, you announced you were starting a podcast, and I was like, whoa, that's
It
crazy.
must have came quite out of the blue.
Yeah, I had
from
no
the
idea. I
outside.
mean, like, you doing a podcast about movies makes sense to me. Like, I totally would have got it. And I know that Paul was into Star Wars and stuff like that, but I was really surprised when I saw Paul was your co-host. Like, I just did not think he would be into doing something like that. So I was really interested and excited to see what you were going to do. But also, when I saw you were doing it, I was genuinely like, wow, like, that's... I didn't think that was achievable for me in any way. So, like, I think I probably messaged you and asked you some questions about it and stuff. And you told me about Anchor. And I'd heard about Anchor before because there's been times where I've had Spotify and I've not like had the bill paid, and I've had to listen to adverts, and I've heard them talking about Anchor. But I kind of just went in one ear and out the other, basically. But yeah, it's like I still use Anchor. I'm only on Spotify and YouTube, and to be honest, I neglect Spotify way too much. I basically focus way too much on YouTube. But I upload my podcast. Let's just press a button, upload it, and it's on Spotify straight away.
So easy though. Like, it's an RSS code you get.
Yeah,
And you only need to sign up to like Google Podcast once, and I don't need to do any extra. See, when I post it on Anchor, it goes everywhere.
Yeah, it's like I need to basically get around getting the RSS code thing. I can't remember. I was just finding.
It's a bit fiddly, but
Yeah.
I found it, so anyone can find it.
But I definitely think what I said was, I think if I start getting requests to go onto other platforms, then I'll maybe start looking into doing that. But I'm kind of happy with just Spotify and YouTube just now. But regardless, like, I do know once I would have my RSS code, it would be easy. But I'm also really lazy when it comes to this stuff.
It's quite cool seeing your own podcast on like Audible and like Apple Podcasts. It's because like I was like next to like Jamie Carragher's podcast. I was like, yes,
Aye.
rubbing shoulders.
Also, as well, like, it does seem like a good way to kind of get your podcast out there more, is having it on more platforms. So I'm definitely not trying to discourage people from doing that. The reason I won't do it is sheer laziness. But like, for example, I see Good Pod seems like a good place to be on.
Yeah, I don't really know much about it. Paul kind of takes the lead with Good Pods. They send like a wee ranking chart through like once a week to where you are.
Yeah.
Me and Paul are a bit dubious whether like how legit it is or not. But there's a account that we engage with on Twitter. Twitter is a great place to grow your podcast as well. And they finished in like first place in one of the charts.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe it is legit.
Aye, I remember seeing that actually. It was really cool. But I mean, like, there's got to be some reason that you're getting put up there. And being first on a chart like that, even if only a few people see it, you're going to stand out. It's going to get you out there. So I definitely think it's a good way of getting yourself out there. But it's definitely a lot easier than I first anticipated anyway. I ended up coming into the studio because I've said before in the first episode, I watch Riley's Gaff regularly, which is a podcast that's sponsored by G4, and they're in here all the time. And I just looked it up on the off chance after seeing yous had one, and I saw like the rates are really reasonable in here. I spoke to Greg, and it all seemed legit. He thought it seemed like a good idea for a podcast too. And I didn't know it was all the way in Wishaw before I agreed to do it. Because I live in Dunoon, so it's quite a trek from Dunoon to here, but I honestly don't mind making the trek because I'm so happy with the product that comes out of it afterwards.
I think when you're doing it once every couple of months, but me and Paul like to do at least one a week.
Yeah.
So
I mean, my
really
initial
economical.
rate was planned to be one a month, but certain things happened that just made it more difficult to do at that rate. But I'm definitely planning on getting back into it and doing more regular. But the way that you do it as well has its advantages too, like we discussed earlier. Like, you guys can just decide to do your podcast whenever you want. You can do it a lot more regular because it's a lot easier to just kind of stick on StreamYard and Anchor. Like, for me to join, like, I've been on a few of your podcasts and you've been on StreamYard, and literally just send me like an invite. It's like Zoom. Just send me an invite to the meeting and I'm in straight away. So
you mentioned some of the ones you've been on with us.
Yes, absolutely. So I've done a Harry Potter ranking that was just me and you as well.
That was good fun.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that one. That was a good one. Go and watch that. I don't think it's got enough love. Also, I've done movie soundtracks.
Yeah, that was actually maybe my favourite one, because I think we just sometimes you're doing a podcast is quite formal, but I think in that one by the end we were just having a laugh.
Yeah,
It was so like informal.
And that's the
Yeah, it
kind
was
of
really
vibe
good.
I want to create in my podcast eventually. Like, I feel like that's another thing as well, because I'm doing so much less podcasts. I feel like it's taking me longer to get into my stride, but
Yeah.
I'm definitely feeling more comfortable as it goes on. But that's definitely one to check out. Top 10 movie soundtracks. We also went on a tangent and discussed top 10 filled roles as well, which is good.
You did Spider-Man movies?
Spider-Man movies, yeah, because I went through a really big phase of loving Spider. I mean, I always love Spider-Man, but like I get really obsessed with Spider-Man once No Way Home came out.
You been in? Is that all you've been on? I thought you've maybe been in more.
Um,
You did the Doctor Strange
as well.
review.
Doctor Strange
that was a
review as
review
well.
rather than a
Aye.
ranking. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I've done anything Star Wars related yet. I was supposed to do an episode of Obi-Wan, but I was behind on that.
He bailed.
Yeah,
First strike.
yeah, I know that was really bad. I bailed like really short notice too. But yeah, I really was behind on that. I'm really bad with keeping up with all the shows, but I'm glad I decided to go in and watch it because I watched it so I could watch your show, your reviews, and I'm glad I did because I did enjoy it in the end. But this is not an Obi-Wan review, so we'll not go on to that tangent. But it's basically like we were saying, just a whole lot easier than you would have expected, and I really enjoy it. Like obviously, like I said, I don't get to do it as often as you guys do, but I love just getting like having a reason to get together and chat about things that I enjoy. Or things that
It's a real buzz. Like,
Yeah,
me and Paul have actually, and another wee tip is to, in terms of, instead of, we used to do like 2 nights a week we would record, but we've actually started just doing both on one night,
Yeah.
and then scheduling them for like Thursday and Monday.
yeah,
And it's so much better because it then frees up a night to do other things.
yeah,
Because we felt like doing it 2 nights, it was 2 late nights during the week. It takes up quite a lot of time. So we're quite enjoying doing them back to back.
yeah.
So like one ranking, one review that way.
I think that's a plan for me in the future as well. Once I'm kind of getting this podcast more going, is like potentially having like basically booking at the studio for like a longer period of time and just battering out like 2 or 3 podcasts.
Or
a
you
day.
could do one of these every couple of months. Maybe do some just from home as well.
Yeah, possibly. I'm
That
thinking
option
about doing
there.
that, but we'll see how that goes. But that was basically one of the things that I wanted to get across was how much easier doing a podcast is than it seems. I mean, I think a lot of the time that's the case with anything though, because I think if you don't, like, I can't remember who made the quote, but it was something like it's a lot harder to be something that you can't see. So like there'll certainly be a lot of things and interests that I've had where
Yeah.
I've never even pursued because there's nobody around me that's done it. But literally, as soon as I saw yous were doing it, then I was like, oh, I can do that. So it's definitely like once you get into it, it's a lot easier than what it appears from the outside. So
Yeah.
if you are ever interested in doing it, I would strongly recommend just doing a little bit of research and looking up those platforms that Colin's mentioned, or like I said, get in contact with Greg here because it really is a lot easier than you would think.
Me and Paul had spoken actually about doing starting up a podcast.
Aye.
Just like podcasts for beginners.
Yeah.
And we've got a long way to go. We really want to increase the views we get on our different podcasts, but I think just in terms of the tools for getting started, we would have
Yeah.
something to share.
That is one warning I would give, and is a big challenge to people that are wanting to get into podcasts. Like, it's not like, I think I've been quite lucky with, especially the first episode. We get a lot of views. We nearly got 1,000 views in that episode, but it's not as like views are not guaranteed, and engagement on other platforms is not always gonna translate over to podcast views and subscriptions to your YouTube or whatever. And it's easy to get discouraged. Like, I remember after I did the one with Lewis, like, I really enjoyed that, and I thought there was a lot of good moments in it. And obviously Lewis is a big name, definitely at one time.
Bigger than me.
But you are special in your own way, Colin. So don't discourage yourself. But yeah, like I assumed, especially because the one with Cammy did so well. The one with Gordon did really well too. That's like my second most viewed. I mean, there's only 3 videos, but still. I expected that one to do really well. I expected that to get thousands of views, and it did not.
So maybe being an open goal a few weeks before might have had an impact.
Aye,
People
I mean-
had already watched that.
Yeah, part of me thought maybe because he'd been on that already, people might have been interested in getting a more in-depth look into his career. But it's definitely could have been. Like, that was what gave me the idea to get him on, because he was on that.
It's different things that we found. Like, our rankings do particularly well when we do older films, we did like Saving Private Ryan did
Yeah.
well. When we did Obi-Wan, the views dropped off, and I don't know, maybe there's not as much demand for like Star Wars only content.
Yeah.
We've also found that our anchor views, which is like Spotify and the different ones, are lower now that we do YouTube.
Yeah.
But our anchor views were quite high before we did YouTube.
Yeah.
So it's a cost benefit analysis, really.
Well, see, that's one reason why I quite like focusing on small amount of platforms. 'Cause I'm thinking if I'm only on Spotify and YouTube, then my views are not going to be spread out over loads of different platforms. I'm just going to have two. But then again, that's more of just like a vanity thing for me, really. Than
6.5, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Because like you said, if you're on more platforms, that's more chances for you to get out there to other places. So, it's definitely, like you said, they both have their own benefits and pros and cons. But the other thing that reason why I wanted to talk about this, and I thought it'd be good to talk about, is just in terms of like a sort of just having a hobby or a passion. I think is really good for your mental health. Not saying that like it's like it has to be movies or it has to be any of the ones that I have, but I just think it's like if you have a passion like podcasting or movies, or for me right now I've been saying it's golf, like it gives you a focus and it gives you something to look forward to.
Yeah.
And like I feel like a lot of people nowadays, and I'm not judging anybody for doing this because I have done this in the past and I do still enjoy doing this, but I think a lot of people's hobby is just drinking in Scotland and or doing other things. And I think that they'll be doing that, getting full of drink at the weekend and like being depressed when it's all over, and then kind of having to force themselves through to the week to get through to next weekend. Whereas like having a hobby that you can focus on and that you're passionate about, it gives you like a focus, and it gives you like not like a reason for being here. Because like, for example, we're not getting to what your career is, but you've got a career that you love and you're really good at, and it gives you a lot of purpose and meaning. But it's like it's good to have something outside of that to enjoy in your spare time. And this probably will get edited out because I've just rabbited on for like.
No, I get what you're saying. Like, I've got a business degree, and people sometimes say, "Oh, you got a business degree. Why do you not run a business?" And I was saying to you earlier, it's like if you've got a full-time job, which I do, you don't really have the time to run a business. You have the money, to an extent, to invest, but if you're unemployed, you've got loads of time but no money. So it's a really hard thing to have a full-time job and run a business. I like to think that podcasting is a happy medium because it is a business to an extent. As Paul will attest, we're not making any money. We're running at a loss, but the process of coming up with the brand, creating a product, which is the podcast, promotion, engaging with customers, which is your Twitter followers, it is a business to an extent, and it fills that gap where I've always wanted to run a business. Not saying I never will, but right now it's really, I don't have that longing that I used to have for having a side business because I'm doing this. So it does really fill that gap for me, and it's something I do look forward to doing every week. Me and Paul speak every day about it. He probably regrets that now. But it's a good way of staying close with friends as well and getting yourself on and different things.
And that's what I mean. Like, I have always had strong opinions about media, but I've never had an outlet to talk about it myself. Like, I've always just, the best I've got is maybe in passing we'll mention like how we feel about a new movie or something if we're together, but most of it was just spent looking at other people's opinions on YouTube and maybe leaving a comment or something to try and discuss it with people. But now I have like an outlet and a reason to get together with my pals and discuss things that I'm passionate about. But I feel like that's like something, it's good to have a reason to get together and speak to people. Like, I feel like it's hard to find reasons to do that again outside of maybe going for a drink or something. So
things we would do anyway. Like, I would always speak to my friends about the shows that we like and the new film, but see, just doing it. And Paul says too now that he does think a lot more critically about movies and shows now that he knows we're going to discuss them, and it's just an extension of what you would already do. And it's amazing once you start doing it, it just becomes so easy. And it's so nice when people, like, I've had messages from a guy I went to primary school with that I've kind of kept in touch with a bit, colleagues at work just saying, "Oh, I checked out your podcast," and just sending nice messages. That was really good. And that's really nice. Just it's sometimes people you least suspect.
Definitely. I mean, I was serving somebody in the co-op one day, and forgive me, I can't remember the guy's name, but he's a lovely guy, and he was getting his lecky, and actually overcharged him because I was so happy that he mentioned my podcast, and I was like so focused on talking to him about that I ended up charging him too much for his lecky. It was funny because he came back into the co-op when I was working that day. It obviously says on your receipt, like you were served by Andrew, and I think obviously knew who I was because of my podcast. And Jamie comes in and is like, all right, is the guy that does the podcast here? And I was like, when he said that he'd asked for me, I was like excited, like, oh, is he wanting to talk about something? And then he's like, you overcharged him his lecky. You need to, is that true? Did you do that? I've had other people just come up to me in the street before, like, and say to me, like, they've seen the podcast and they really enjoed it, which is pretty surreal. I mean, it's only Dunoon, so like, I know it's because I'm local and they know who I am, but it's still really nice to have that feeling of
an extension to that. Like, we've got a really good, in terms of, I mean, Paul, in terms of the community on Twitter, and we've got loads of like American podcasters. Anchor tells you who views it. We've got people in like Finland, Holland, random places that have listened. And we've actually had Ryan from Thoughts About Star Wars, a good Star Wars podcast, who's came on and done a couple of guest spots with us. And me and Paul had never met him before, and you wouldn't know it. I wouldn't think you probably listened to the ones we've been on with Ryan, and it just is such an easy. It just feels so natural.
You have a good rapport, and I genuinely want to. Not only would I want to see you two do some more stuff together, I feel like I'd like to do a podcast with Ryan as well.
It's cool, man. And we've got a few other ones we've talked about before. We've branched out a wee bit from the cinema, not for this first one, but with Neil Boyle, local film director, who came on. It was a really good chat, and we had Hayley McFarlane, who's really an author. So we've branched out, and that's something we'd like to continue to do. And there's a few other local actors that we've spoken about as well. We can maybe get them.
No, that'll be kept under wraps. A, because it probably won't happen, and B,
you never know.
But yeah, that's it. You know what? You shouldn't even say those things, because you should believe in yourself.
Reach for the stars.
Exactly. Reach for the stars. Land on the moon. But yeah, 100%. Like, basically, the gist is, like, it's great to have a hobby. It's great to have a passion. What is your slogan? The power of escapism.
The power of escapism.
Yeah. So it's like that. Basically, I feel like translates into what because I've like I've said, in the last 2-3 months, I feel like I'm the happiest I've ever been. Partially because I am, but again, I've mentioned in previous podcasts that I've been on like a weight loss journey, but I'm basically like the same weight the whole time. But I've been having problems with injuries and stuff like that, which I seem to have resolved now, without getting into too much detail. And I'm managing to get on a strong track of like focusing on that, focusing on my golf, focusing on the podcast. Like, I just feel so much happier than before, when I didn't really have much of a purpose. Basically, like I said, you had purpose before this podcast, and you were just kind of finding a side purpose. But I definitely, before I had this podcast and other outlets, I definitely felt a need for that. And I feel like a lot of people have, especially just like young single guys like myself, probably don't realise that they could really do with some sort of purpose to have outside of. I mean, because like I said, you're lucky where you've got a job that you knew you wanted to do and saw it through and went for it. And I love my job, by the way. I'm just saying that I've probably worked in the best place I've ever worked. But I definitely think there's a lot of people out there that are not working in a job that they're happy in, and outside of that, they don't realise why they're unhappy. And I think if they can find a passion and get stuck into it, I think it could really help them.
I highly recommend podcasting, because you could literally talk about anything.
Yeah.
Within limits.
Somebody
we had a funny idea, just random ones, like the day in the life of a cleaner and things like that.
Yeah, that was a great idea, by the way. I genuinely, like, if you don't do it, I'll do it.
There'll be some stories.
Get Alien and Kerr on here, tell me some stories. Kerr on a podcast as well would be just brilliant.
Don't know if that'll happen.
I don't think it would do it, but he would be class on a podcast. But I know, definitely talk about anything. Like, you could talk about tables. There'll be people out there that are like table makers that would watch that. Like somebody will watch whatever you want to talk about. And as well, don't do it for the people that are watching. I'm learning that now, because that was my initial goal going into it. I was like, see if we get 30 views, I'll be happy. But the first podcast got like loads and loads of views, so I kind of got caught up in that. But I'm going back to now, just don't care about views. Do it for the love of it.
Yeah, that's what me and Paul go back to. When we get some videos, like we did one recently, it was a review of Hustle, the new Adam Sandler film.
Great movie, by the way.
And it didn't get many views, but and I watched the film essentially to do the review, which is a bit of a theme, and enjoyed the film. I enjoyed the discussion, so we really enjoy recording them. So no regrets.
Aye. Awesome. No regrets. I like that. I was just looking over at the time there. We've been recording for quite a while. We're up to like, I think if you count the first 10 minutes where we tried to do that ridiculous sketch, we've been recording for like over 10 minutes. So probably time to close out. We've already promoted, but again, go look at me on all the social medias: TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, at Strachan's Podcast or at StraxPod. You'll find me. And Colin.
And follow Seismic Cinema, subscribe to Seismic Cinema.
Yes.
And just talk Seismic Cinema. Yeah. Keep enjoying the movies.
Yes. But I normally, you know what, I totally forgot to do this with you. The first 3 podcasts, I had a tradition.
Oh, can we do it?
Yeah, let's do it. If we need to edit out this dead air that may come while you're thinking about it, we can. But there are 3 words that I'll always try to get to this exercise. Shout out to Gordon. He's the one that does this with all his like people in his classes or people that he has come to see him. 3 words that you either like to see, you want to see yourself as, or you want other people to see yourself as, like basically to describe you. Mine is pretty simple. Mine is always fun, kind, and helpful.
Okay.
So that's like the 3 words I would use to hopefully describe myself, or how I want to see myself, or how I aspire to be seen by other people. So what would your 3 words be if you had to think of them? I know this is you're being put in the spot. I've got everybody else to prepare these.
I like approachable.
Approachable.
Both in work and in personal life.
Aye.
I like enthusiastic, because I think both aspects of podcasts and my work aspect, I do need to be enthusiastic. And the last one, unique. I like to think I'm quite quirky and a wee bit different in some
You
regards.
absolutely smashed that, by the way, off the top of the dome. That was really good.
That's all right.
Well done. They're possibly the best one, and you came up with it on the spot. That's brilliant.
I have to be quite adaptable.
Most of them are like, I like to be seen as nice and good.
I have to be quite adaptable in my day job. So.
Aye. But I know that's good. No, by the way, I was a joke to all my previous guests. They were all great, but those were really good answers. But yeah, thank you so much for again coming along, Colin. I've really enjoyed my day. It's been a lovely day. We had a lovely walk around Wishaw, the beautiful town of Wishaw. We were trying to find this place.
I'm still no better at Google Maps than I used to be.
Aye, by the way, I know people will be like, how could you not find it? This is the 4th time you've done a podcast, but I normally get picked up and dropped off here by Greg like he's my dad. But this time I decided to walk here like a big boy, and Google Maps was not a friend. But we managed to get through it. I had a really good day, really good discussion. Hopefully people will stick around and listen to this mammoth podcast.
Should we put a wee bookmark on when we started talking about podcasting?
Yeah.
For anyone not interested.
I know,
in
definitely. You know how you see nowadays there's like a storyline?
Yeah.
We're definitely going to do that, because people might not be into Thor. But I was even thinking about making it like 2 separate podcasts at one point.
Maybe it should have been.
I know. But no, really enjoyed it. Shows you how much fun we had, Colin, because it didn't feel like that. I kind of looked over at the thing and I was like, holy smokes,
Hopefully we still make our train.
Aye. But yeah, good point. But yeah, on that note, thank you very much for listening, and hopefully see you again a lot sooner than last time. Cheers.
Bye.